He has been courageously standing in the face of the lion for a long time and continues to do so. And that is the Eagle Forum motto. That's why Phyllis Schlafly chose the emblem of the eagle, because she loves how the eagle faces the wind and uses the wind to even raise it higher. And she's been doing that all of her life. And our wonderful Senator Pearce is a true eagle. So please join me in welcoming Senator Russell Pearce.
Thank you. It is always good to stand before people who care about this great nation. I appreciate some of the comments made earlier, and my heart is touched when I listen to good patriots. I love this republic. You know, I read about the founders, and I teach my children to read and understand. In fact, I had one of my little granddaughters called me the other day, and kind of a heart-touching thing. She was so excited, hadn't even told her parents, and she cited the Declaration of Independence, word perfect, on the phone, because she knew that made me happy. And what a great thing. If we don't teach our children the founding principles and the great men that they were, and about this Constitution, they won't learn about it. If they don't learn about it, how can they love it? If they don't love it, how are they going to defend it? That is our obligation as Americans. That is our duty as Americans. Well, I'm grateful. I've been raised from a young man to love this country and have respect. I read about the founders, and I've read about the real George Washington. I've read about the real Benjamin Franklin, the real Thomas Jefferson. I think I know Patrick Henry. I think I know Thomas Paine. I've read about these men. I've studied them. You could not read about the history of this nation, the real history, and about these men and the miracles that happened for this country to become what it is. A little ragtag army led by congregations with a minister at the head of it took on the most powerful army and navy in the world. Shouldn't have won that war. Miracle after miracle after miracle occurred in the making of America. And you cannot read about that and not believe that God had his hand in the making of America. And I believe we owe that kind of reverence to this document. I believe those men were inspired. They started their sessions with prayer. They sought and invited divine intervention in their works. Think about it. This is the first Constitution ever written that started out, "We the people." Not even the Magna Carta started out, "We the people." It started out, "We the barons." And think about it. When they fought over the Constitution and writing this wonderful document, of course, the founding document, Declaration of Independence, they recognized so much, put into play our independence and what it was about. Then, of course, 11 years later, to get an actual Constitution, and we lived under the Articles of Confederation for 11 years. And they realized those weren't working. So they started putting this Constitution together. I remember those debates. And I appreciated those debates. So you know one of the major battles were? They were concerned. There were the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists and all that, and you remember that. But they were concerned. And Patrick Henry kind of led that charge about a Bill of Rights. And they were concerned about this Bill of Rights. Not because they didn't believe in it. They were concerned if they put it in writing attached to the Constitution, that some of you would actually believe that those rights came from government rather than God. They were so concerned about inalienable rights, God-given rights. But anyway, they did write this Constitution. They enshrined it, these liberties, these inalienable, God-given rights, and with it a Bill of Rights to preserve this legacy of freedom, something they sought for so long. And I remember the battle, you know, as they told King George III, and I love these Tea Party movements around this country. I love the awakening of America. And I just hope it's not too late. I think we're a republic in distress. We have strayed from our moral and founding principles. I remember John Adams, who made the comment very simply, this republic will survive under none other than a religious and moral people. It's self-government. It was intended to be self-government. It was intended to be ran by people who had a moral compass, to a people that had a moral compass. Well, that's one of the things that lead into this, and or at least made it very clear we're short of time, so I'll try to be somewhat brief. But there's so much to talk about and so much to tell. We're a nation, and I believe we're being faced with a battle of epic proportion in the attempt to survive. We're a nation of laws, the rule of law. And again, I believe we have an obligation to be charitable. I believe we have an obligation to be thoughtful. But you know, to misuse those terms, though, is inappropriate. It's like tolerance. Tolerance is not something that I think is a good trait in most cases. Tolerant means to accept things that aren't right or bad. Be respectful, to work on those things, but we're not tolerant. We don't accept things that are not right. We change them. We fight for them. We correct them. Just like your children, we discipline them in a loving, proper way. But we don't tolerate misbehavior. We don't tolerate it from our government either. And what we've got is a government who has failed their constitutional duties to the citizens of this republic. And again, you've got to remember, we're not citizens of the United States. We're citizens of the several sovereign states. These states existed before Congress. They created the federal government, not the other way around. And we've allowed the government to get bigger than we the people, which was never intended. It was never intended. It was intended that we're in charge. Now we have Obamacare telling you must buy insurance, and what kind, and it's got to be government approved. We've got government bailing out banks, bailing out car companies. Government is out of control. And if we don't start electing patriots, people who have a respect for our founding principles in this Constitution, we're going to lose the very country we love. We have an obligation to leave these liberties in place, to preserve, like Joseph Story said, I think he was our first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, that we must teach our children that these freedoms were bought with the blood and the toils of those who led the way. And again, I appreciate when I come to places like the Eagle Forum, family values, defending those values that I think are the bedrock of our society, those moral values of a mom and a dad and a family. And I'm grateful for your vigilance in that effort. And I just hope that we can spread that. And again, I talk to Tea Party groups probably a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, depending on the time. I can certainly appreciate the invites, and I can't speak to all of them. But I appreciate the opportunity I'm given to speak on these issues, because they're near and dear to my heart. Let me just tell you briefly, and I know you want to hear something about 1070. This has been a long battle. It's been a long battle. And I've been vigilant in this, and again, I've been in law enforcement most of my life. In fact, I tease a little bit. You know, I'm one of 13 children. My wife's one of 7. I have about 100 nephews and nieces. They're all registered to vote. That's why I don't need a lot of friends. And my job is not to make friends. I hope I do. I like friends. I had one not too long ago. But I really do. I more than anything else, I don't vote to get reelected. And I tell people all the time, if you want to unelect me. I keep my word, I keep my promises. When we talk about a contract with America, I have mine called the Constitution. I know my duty. I'm rated every year. Thank you. In the Arizona legislature, I'm usually rated as the top legislator in defense of liberty and limited government. And that's not always easy to do. You know, as the appropriations chair, I mean, you know, my job is to be the gatekeeper, not the gift giver. And so I take those responsibilities very serious. So anyway, as we're battling on these battles, and by the way, somebody did really mention, I'd tell you why. I'm a Republican, some of you may know that. And I'm pretty conservative. In fact, if I had a hole in my house that went left, I'd rebuild my house. So I want you to know I know where I stand, and the people who elect me know where I stand. But I can tell you I'm a Republican for a lot of reasons, because I'm a constitutionalist first. My principles are founded in these founding principles. And I criticize Republicans when they don't adhere and live up to those principles. You know, I think they need reference. Being a Republican doesn't make you a good guy or a gal. I hope you stand on that platform. We vote for you sometimes because we hope you mean that you believe in the platform of limited government, pro-family, pro-life, all the things that I think this party is supposed to embellish and says in the platform. But anyway, as a young man, actually, they were just anchor babies. It wasn't illegal. They shot me, but had a finger shot off, and I was shot through the chest. And I tell people that it's one of the reasons I'm a Republican today, because if I hadn't been a Republican, I'd be dead today if I had had a heart. And so anyway, I was shot. In fact, there's 350s Magnum. The fun thing about this now with my grandchildren, you're surviving, you always have fun. And I won't demonstrate all that up here, but we have a lot of fun with this, where I can, you know, appear to have my finger embedded in certain places in my ear and nose that, you know, and they think it's all the way in there before they realize, you know. So we have a lot of fun with it. But when you talk about this, you know, it's an interesting world. I've been in the best battle for a long time, and let me tell you, it's kind of interesting. In 2004, while debating this very issue at the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C., and again, I've been in this battle for many years. Former Chief Deputy Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Joe. Most of you heard about Sheriff Joe. I was his Chief Deputy. Taught him everything he knows. I want you to know that. The guy put together tent city and all that. But anyway, I've been in this battle for a long, long time. I believe in the rule of law. It is imperative. You destroy a republic when you fail to secure this government through a republic is a constitutional republic is based on the rule of law. When you don't follow that and you destroy it, you become a lawless nation. You will destroy the very republic you love. You understand? This is a fundamental principle as a republic. It's critical. You can't have a good heart that allows you to destroy your nation, and especially in a welfare state. But anyway, I'm debating this very issue in the Brookings Institute. Literally standing at the podium. And I was handed a note to call home, critical, emergency, right away. And I think, wow, I've got 13 grandchildren. And I'm thinking, something's happened to one of them. So I step in the podium and I find a telephone, I call home. My wife to tell me that Sean, one of my sons, I have 2 boys in law enforcement, had been shot, critically injured. Air vac to a hospital. She doesn't know how bad. So I'm finding a ride home. Got to find a flight, change my flight, get back to Phoenix, Mesa, actually. About an hour later, she catches up to me and she says, Russell, this is really going to make you mad. Sean was shot by an illegal alien. Wanted on drug charges and homicide. Already involved in other shootings. And it was a gun battle. Well, you know what? She was right to some degrees. I was upset, but not at that young man. He belongs in prison, and I must confess, in the gun battle, I wish those 2 deputies